Malta's megalithic temples are older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and according to local legend, built by a giantess who carried 50-ton stones while nursing her baby. And the archaeological evidence doesn't make the truth any less mysterious. These limestone temples, dating to 3600 BCE, feature megaliths, weighing over 50 tons, that were somehow quarried, transported, and erected by people who hadn't invented the wheel, didn't possess metal tools, and left no written records explaining how they achieved engineering feats that challenge modern capabilities. Within 200 years of first arriving on these tiny Mediterranean islands, Neolithic farmers supposedly transformed from cave dwellers into master architects, building 30-plus temple complexes with astronomical alignments so precise they track solstices and equinoxes, a development timeline that makes zero archaeological sense. The Giantess temples alone required moving stones heavier than 10 elephants combined, stacking them into structures 25 feet tall, all while achieving perfect alignment with celestial events, using knowledge that should have taken centuries to develop. Then there's the hypogeum, a 3-level underground labyrinth carved 40 feet into solid limestone bedrock, featuring acoustic chambers that amplify specific sound frequencies to induce trance states, painted with red ochre spirals, and containing the remains of over 7,000 people, including skulls with elongated craniums that sparked decades of speculation. Who were these mysterious builders that 17th century historians called the race of giants? And why did their civilization suddenly vanish around 2500 BCE, leaving behind monuments but no successors? How did Stone Age people achieve engineering sophistication that modern builders struggle to replicate? And what do the mysterious cart ruts running into the ocean reveal about Malta's true age? And why do temple alignments with the star Sirius suggest construction spanning 5,000 years from 9,150 BCE, making them contemporary with the end of the last ice age rather than the Neolithic period? I'm the ancientologist, and I spend my time uncovering the parts of history they don't teach in school. Today, we're diving into Malta's temple mysteries, where giants, astronomical precision, and impossible timelines collide to challenge everything archaeology claims about our ancient past. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this journey to the Mediterranean's most enigmatic islands is about to reveal why these structures might rewrite the entire history of civilization. 1. The temples that shouldn't exist. The orthodox archaeological timeline for Malta presents a narrative that collapses under its own logical inconsistencies. Humans first arrived around 5,900 BCE as primitive Neolithic farmers living in caves, abandoned the islands for 1,000 years due to drought, then returned around 3,850 BCE, and within just 200 years were building Giantess, one of the most sophisticated megalithic structures on Earth. This development timeline is archaeologically unprecedented. No other civilization in human history progressed from basic subsistence farming to advanced megalithic construction in such an impossibly short time frame. Yet Malta's academic establishment expects us to accept this without question. Giantess' construction, around 3,600 BCE, means these supposed primitive farmers achieved architectural mastery that required understanding of geometry, astronomy, engineering, and social organization, capable of mobilizing hundreds of workers, all within a few generations of barely surviving on an isolated island. The largest stones at Giantess weigh over 50 tons, equivalent to 10 adult elephants. Yet somehow, people without wheels, without metal tools, without draft animals, and without written plans quarried these megaliths from limestone bedrock, transported them across rough terrain, and erected them into freestanding structures over 25 feet tall. Modern engineering analysis struggles to explain how this was accomplished. Lifting 50-ton stones requires sophisticated leverage systems, massive wooden frameworks, coordinated teams of hundreds of workers, and engineering knowledge that supposedly didn't exist in 3600 BCE anywhere on Earth. yet Malta's builders achieved it repeatedly across 30-plus temple sites. The temples display astronomical alignments that require generations of careful observation. Menajdra's entrance perfectly frames the rising sun during equinoxes and solstices. Hagar Kim features a precisely positioned hole that channels solstice sunlight onto specific interior stones, and multiple sites incorporate solar calendars suggesting sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. Where are the precursors showing gradual development of these skills? In every other civilization, we see centuries of trial and error, crude early attempts improving over generations, technological progression from simple to complex. But Malta's temples appear fully formed at the civilization's beginning, as if the knowledge arrived complete rather than developing organically. The sheer number of temples compounds the mystery. At least 30 major complexes were built across Malta's tiny 316 square kilometers, meaning these supposedly resource-poor Stone Age people constructed a new, massive megalithic temple roughly every 33 years for over a millennium, an architectural output that would strain modern societies with infinitely superior technology and organization. How did a tiny island population, probably numbering only a few thousand people at most, generate the surplus food, organize the labor forces, develop the engineering expertise, and maintain the social cohesion necessary to sustain such ambitious construction for over 1,000 years? Malta's temples represent either the fastest technological development in human history or evidence that the orthodox timeline is fundamentally wrong, concealing a far older and more sophisticated origin that mainstream archaeology refuses to acknowledge. The mystery of Malta's temples isn't just about missing technology. It's about missing everything that should accompany such advanced civilization. What cultural forces drove these people to immediately begin building monumental temples upon arrival? And where did they acquire the knowledge to do so? Stick around, because we're about to uncover the giant who started it all. 2. The giantess and her baby. Local Maltese folklore preserves a tradition that Orthodox archaeology dismisses as primitive superstition, yet offers explanations for mysteries that science cannot adequately address. The temples were built by a giantess named Sansuna, who carried massive stones from one end of Gozo Island to the other while nursing her baby. The legend's persistence across millennia suggests it may preserve cultural memory of something real. Perhaps not literal giants, but builders whose capabilities seemed superhuman to later inhabitants who couldn't comprehend how such massive structures were erected. When 17th century Maltese historian Giovanni Francesco Abela first described Hagar Kim in 1649, he concluded it provided indubitable evidence of the fact that the first inhabitants of Malta were of the race of giants. His assessment, based on the logical observation that moving 50-ton stones seemed to require strength beyond normal human capability. The giant legends aren't unique to Malta. Megalithic sites worldwide are associated with giant builders in local folklore. From the Nephilim of biblical tradition, to the giants of Greek mythology, to Native American legends about the mound builders, suggesting a universal human response to encountering structures whose construction methods remain inexplicable. Archaeological discoveries at Malta's temples, and particularly the hypogeum, have fueled giant speculation. Some of the thousands of skulls recovered showed unusual elongation and cranial features that differ from typical human morphology, though whether this resulted from intentional cranial deformation practices or represents genuine biological differences remains debated. The elongated skulls sparked decades of pseudo-scientific theories linking Malta to everything from ancient aliens to Atlantean survivors to lost races of human giant hybrids, though modern DNA analysis could definitively resolve these questions if authorities permitted comprehensive testing of the remains. What cannot be dismissed is the engineering mystery. Even granting that normal-sized humans built the temples, they accomplished feats that modern engineers with cranes, trucks, and computer modeling find challenging to replicate, raising legitimate questions about what knowledge or techniques have been lost to history. The temple's precision adds to the giant mystique. Stones weighing tens of tons are fitted together so perfectly that blades cannot be inserted between them, suggesting either incredibly advanced stoneworking techniques or, as folklore insists, effortless manipulation by beings of superior strength. Some researchers note that the temple doorways and interior passages are unusually large, often 8 to 10 feet tall, proportions that would accommodate beings significantly larger than average Neolithic humans, who rarely exceeded 5.5 feet in height, though mainstream archaeology attributes this to ceremonial grandeur rather than builders' physical dimensions. The giant legends also explain the temple's sudden abandonment around 2500 BCE. Folklore says the giants departed or died out, leaving their monuments empty for later arrivals, who lacked the knowledge or ability to maintain them, a narrative that matches archaeological evidence better than theories about gradual cultural decline. Modern attempts to replicate megalithic construction using Stone Age tools and techniques have achieved mixed results at best. Experimental archaeologists can move small stones using wooden rollers and ropes, but scaling up to 50-ton megaliths requires exponentially more workers, resources, and coordination than small-scale experiments demonstrate. The giantess legend preserves one crucial detail that archaeology confirms. The temples were built by people whose capabilities exceeded what their supposed technological level should have allowed. Whether those capabilities came from lost knowledge, superior techniques, or, as folklore insists, physical advantages we no longer possess. What if the giant legends aren't primitive superstition, but cultural memory of a vanished people? Perhaps not literal giants, but builders whose engineering knowledge was so advanced they seemed superhuman to later inhabitants? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because understanding who really built these temples might require questioning assumptions that archaeology considers settled facts. 3. The Hypogeum's underground mysteries. Beneath the town of Paola lies Malta's most enigmatic structure, the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, a 3-level subterranean complex carved entirely from solid limestone bedrock between 4000 to 2500 BCE, extending 40 feet underground, with chambers exhibiting architectural sophistication that makes no sense for its supposed Stone Age origins. The Hypogeum wasn't discovered until 1902, when construction workers accidentally broke through its roof, revealing a labyrinth that had been sealed and forgotten for over 4,000 years. Its preservation so perfect that painted red ochre decorations still adorn ceilings, where they were applied before Egypt's pyramids were built. The structure's 3 levels represent different construction phases. The upper level, from around 4000 BCE, consists of natural caves that were enlarged and modified. The middle level, from 3300 to 3000 BCE, features the most elaborate architecture with curved walls, trilithon doorways, and decorated chambers, while the lowest level, plunging 12 meters underground, contains simpler chambers that may have served as storage or held significance we can no longer understand. What makes the Hypogeum extraordinary isn't just its age, but its engineering. Carving these chambers from solid limestone using Stone Age tools would require removing thousands of tons of rock, with no evidence of where this material was deposited, suggesting either undiscovered disposal sites or techniques more efficient than archaeology acknowledges. The architectural sophistication is staggering. Chambers feature curved walls, mimicking the above-ground temple's design, elaborate corbelling creating false domes, precisely cut trilithon doorways, and decorative elements including spirals, honeycombs, and geometric patterns painted in red ochre that have survived millennia in the stable underground environment. The Oracle Room represents the Hypogeum's most mysterious feature, an oval chamber with a domed ceiling painted with red spirals, containing a specially carved niche that amplifies sound at specific frequencies, creating acoustic effects that can be felt throughout the entire underground complex. Modern acoustic testing revealed that sounds at 110 Hz, particularly male voices and drumming, resonate powerfully through the oracle room, creating vibrations strong enough to induce altered consciousness states, suggesting the builders understood psychoacoustic effects that weren't formally studied until the 20th century. Why would Stone Age people design chambers with such precise acoustic properties unless they intended to use sound for ritual purposes involving trance states? And how did they achieve this sophistication without the mathematical and engineering knowledge that acoustic design requires? The hypogeum served primarily as a necropolis. Over 7,000 human remains were discovered during early excavations, though tragically, much of this evidence was discarded by initial investigators who didn't understand its significance, with bones being used as fertilizer by locals before proper archaeological study could occur. Among the surviving skeletal remains were skulls showing unusual elongation, some naturally occurring, some possibly from intentional cranial deformation practices, but all raising questions about who these people were and why they invested such enormous effort into creating an underground burial chamber of unprecedented scale and sophistication. The famous Sleeping Lady figurine, discovered in the hypogeum, depicts a reclining female figure with elaborate detail, possibly representing death, sleep, or trance states. Her presence in the underground chambers, suggesting fertility and death, were intimately connected in the builder's belief system. The hypogeum's Holy of Holies chamber features precise solar orientation. During the winter solstice, sunlight penetrates through the original entrance passage to illuminate the chamber's facade, suggesting the builders integrated celestial observations into their underground architecture, just as they did in surface temples. How did Stone Age people carve a 3-level underground complex with acoustic engineering, astronomical alignments, elaborate decorations, and architectural sophistication that wouldn't be matched in Europe for thousands of years? And why has mainstream archaeology shown so little interest in thoroughly studying this unique structure? The hypogeum's very existence challenges the orthodox timeline. If humans only arrived on Malta in 3850 BCE, and the hypogeum was begun around 4000 BCE, that leaves only 150 years for the culture to develop from arrival to beginning this sophisticated underground construction, a timeline even more compressed and illogical than that proposed for the surface temples. What if the hypogeum's true age is far greater than radiocarbon dating suggests, and it represents not the beginning of Malta's temple culture, but the continuation of building traditions that stretch back to when Malta was still connected to Sicily by a land bridge during the Ice Age? The temple's sudden abandonment around 2500 BCE, leaving behind monuments but no clear successors, adds to the mystery. What catastrophe could erase a civilization so thoroughly that even memory of their identity was largely lost, preserved only in fragmentary folklore about giants and ancient peoples whose true story remains unknown? Modern archaeology's refusal to seriously investigate the underwater cart ruts, the serious alignments, or the implications of temples requiring capabilities beyond their supposed technological level suggests not scientific rigor, but defensive protection of orthodox timelines that cannot accommodate evidence pointing to earlier, more sophisticated origins. The temples remain, their massive stones still standing after thousands of years, their astronomical alignments still functional, their engineering still impressive, silently testifying that something about the official story doesn't add up and demanding explanations that mainstream archaeology refuses to provide. What aspect of Malta's temple mysteries intrigues you most? The impossible construction timeline, the giant legends, the underwater cart ruts, the serious alignments suggesting Ice Age origins, or the hypogeum's acoustic engineering? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep questioning the narratives that don't make sense even when they're defended by academic authority. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.